In this video, we're going to be using charcoal to shade in an eye. So we're going to be looking at how to draw the eye, everything that you need to include, and then working with charcoal and shading. So getting started, definitely use simple shapes. So don't add a lot of detail right away. And here's the picture of the eye that we're working with. So start as simple as possible. Outline everything first before you start adding detail. I would lightly also outline where your highlights and your shadows are going to be, just to make things a little bit easier. So you can see right now I'm outlining all the highlights and shadows on the left there. If you're having trouble seeing where highlights and shadows are, you could try to squint your eyes, and this will help to just make everything have a little bit more contrast, and that might help you to pick out those really light areas and really dark areas. But once you have things generally outlined and they look good, I would start going in and adding the shading for the shadows. So I'm still pressing really lightly. The only spot that I'm completely filling in is the pupil here that I know will for sure be black, but everything else I'm starting really lightly, and then I'm going to go back and add more detail as I continue drawing. So I'm just slowly shading in those lighter values. Remember when you're using shading that you can be using small circles to help blend areas easily. So right here I'm using those small circles to make sure everything is shaded as well as possible. Definitely avoid shading really dark right away. So take your time, build the layers, and as you go it will blend a little bit more easily, and then you can erase things still if you do happen to realize that you messed up, versus trying to erase something that was shaded in really dark. So only go back over those areas once you feel confident that you have the shadow in the right spot and it's outlined with the correct shape. But now I'm going over the corner of the eye there where it's a lot darker. Make sure that you do outline the line for your eyelid, so that's important to look for all the different shapes in here. You'll also notice that right under the eye here, there's a highlight before the eyelashes, so make sure you're leaving that area a highlight if you do have that section show up on your eye. So really look for all of the parts of the eye here. Look at what's actually in the picture versus what you assume to be there. So really spend a good amount of time observing the picture as you're drawing. With eyelashes, try to avoid doing straight lines, and I would avoid doing a lot of them. So try to, again, see what's actually there. Look at the angle of them. Usually on the outside of the eye, they make a J shape. And then as you get towards the inside of the eye, they flip, and it would be more of a backwards J. And then on the bottom part of the eyelashes, look at where the eyelash is actually coming out of. And it's not directly in the center of the eye here, but off to the side of this little eyelid here, that highlight. And then when you're doing the eyebrow, I would start with just a solid base value over the eyebrow there. So then that way you can go back in with your shadow afterwards, and you won't have lots of white gaps of the paper showing through. So I would just shade it all in, and then look for the darkest areas that you can go back and add the value change to. So that's, in this picture, a lot on the outside here, and then you can see a little bit of larger sections. But the whole thing is not 1,000 individual hairs. So again, I'm just looking for sections of shadow. Maybe try to look at the shape that that shadow makes as you're filling it in. And remember, you do have that kneadable eraser, so you can kind of tap the areas that you want to lighten, or if you have any more highlights that you need to add. So really take your time. Here's what the end result looks like. So again, you should have shading above the eye, where the middle is going to be mainly your highlight or lighter value that's right here, since that's closest to the viewer. And then you also should have some shading in the white part of the eye. So this should not be completely white. There is still shadow around the outside there. And then there should be at least one large highlight in your eye, and then look for the texture of the eye and the iris here, and how you can build those layers to really darken some of the sections. So right here on the outside is going to be the darkest, and you can see that area here. And again, really focus on those eyelashes. I would save the eyelashes for the very last thing that you do, because you still need that value change underneath them. So it shouldn't be completely white underneath the eyelashes there. You should shade in the outsides and make those darker, The middle might be more of a highlight since again that's closest to the viewer, but wait to make those eyelashes till you're done. And remember that those do get smaller as they go out. You can maybe shade a little bit on the bottom here to make it a little darker. Try to also look at the shadow that's around the outside of the eye where the nose would start, and that's going to really help that eye sit in the space that it's in and make it more three-dimensional. So take your time, really look for highlights and shadows. Don't add detail until you have a good outline of your eye and you feel confident with everything that you have put together for it.